Of the First Legion and its master, the mighty Lionel Johnson, much knowledge lay shrouded in rumor, with scant fact to be found of his earliest years. Long before the Great Crusade, when the galaxy was yet to be tamed, the infant Primarch was born within a gestation pod, mysteriously transported through the warp from the Emperor's gene laboratory beneath the lofty Himalayan mountains. Fate led his pod to land on Caliban, a feudal death world, within the dark recesses of Segmentum Obscurius. This treacherous planet, veiled by the dense cloak of forest, was home to monstrous beasts, twisted and mutated by the insidious touch of chaos. For it was whispered that Caliban lay too close to the Eye of Terror, where the birth of the chaos god Slaanesh had once ravaged the cosmos. In the midst of such peril, the lion emerged into this world, a lone survivor of the wilderness, a wild man far from the civilized realms of men. Thus did he endure the trials of the untamed wilds, honing his skills and strengthening his resolve, until the day he would rise to claim his destiny as a mighty Primarch of the First Legion. In ages past, when the great beast roamed the forests of Caliban, the planet was home to many knightly orders of warrior aristocrats who were forged to protect the people in the massive fortress monasteries. These knights wielded primitive bolt pistols and donned suits of simple power armor, passed down from knight to knight, maintaining the ancient technology of Caliban from before the Age of Strife. Despite their technological advancements, Caliban remained a pre-industrial society, with warriors galloping into battle on horseback. Among the knightly orders, the most esteemed and revered was simply known as the Order, comprised of both commoners and nobles. Meanwhile, the other orders were reserved exclusively for the Calibanite noble. But in the depths of the Caliban's forests, a breed of creature unknown to the galaxy had survived. Monstrous chimeric weapons, remnants of the Age of Strife, lurked in the shadows, driven by an insatiable hunger that could not be quenched. These beasts were capable of rending an armored warrior into ruin of blood and flesh in mere seconds. It was here, over a century and a half after the establishment of these knightly orders, that a young Lionel Johnson was discovered by a hunting party of the Order. Alone and surviving as a wild man far from civilization, the Primarch had endured in a treacherous forest of Caliban, where even the bravest knights dared not tread. Nobody could fathom the true extent of his time spent in the wilderness. The Primarchs did not age as the mere mortals did, and the span of years in which he prowled the sea of trees could have been much longer than anyone realized. Regardless of the exact time spent in the forest, it left a mark upon the lion, for the depths beneath the canopy were home to the most foul and terrifying monstrosities imaginable. But the young Primarch persevered, honing his skills and strength amidst the horrors of Caliban. He moved with the silence of a predator and fought with the ferocity of a cornered beast. He knew that every mistake could be his last, and so he honed his instincts to perfection. His childhood was spent in the shadow of death, but he emerged from the forest a warrior of unmatched prowess and a leader destined to guide his legion to glory. But he was more than a savage, more than a mere beast. He possessed a keen intellect and a cool, calculated mind. He was a hunter, not a berserker, and he knew that victory required more than raw strength. He studied his prey, learned their habits, and struck with deadly precision. And so it was that when the knights of Caliban found him, they saw not a monster, but a warrior. But still, they feared him, for he was like no man they had ever seen. It was Luther, the greatest champion of the Order, who recognized the potential in the young Primarch. Luther named him Lionel Johnson and took him under his wing, teaching him the ways of the Order. He showed him a path of justice, the power of reason, and the value of honor. He gave the young lion a new purpose, a reason to fight beyond mere survival. And so, the lion began a new chapter in his life, one where he would use his skill to protect mankind, to serve the Emperor, and to bring order to the galaxy. But the memory of the forest and the lessons it taught him would always remain a part of him, shaping him into the fearsome warrior that he would become. But in the depths of Caliban's forest, a battle for survival raged. The great beasts, born of the world's dying breath, savagely preyed upon the dwindling human population, driving them to the brink of extinction. L. JONSON, the lion son of the forest, was a force to be reckoned with. Trained in the ways of man by the Order, he learned quickly and soon rose through the ranks, becoming one of the greatest champions. But his true calling lay beyond the walls of his fortress, in the heart of the untamed wilderness. With his loyal comrade Luther by his side, L. JONSON gazed out upon the forest that had once been his home, now a realm of terror and bloodshed. And in that moment, he knew what he must do. He would lead a crusade against the great beasts, a war to end all wars and save his people from certain doom. No longer content to merely defend their fortress, L. JONSON and Luther set out to rally the people of Caliban to their cause. They spoke of hope and glory, of a future where the world would be free of the scourge of the beasts, and though many doubted their chances, none could deny the fire in their hearts or the strength of their conviction. And so it was that the Lion became the leader of a great army, a force of warriors unlike any the world had ever seen. With his primitive bolt pistol and simple power armor, he charged forth into battle, cutting down the beasts with a fury that shook the very earth beneath his feet. Though the war was long and brutal, L. JONSON never faltered. His determination was unshakable, his will unbreakable, and in the end, he emerged victorious, having slayed the last of the great beasts and saved his people from certain doom. Lion L. JONSON, whose bravery and might exceeded all expectations, he was not merely a warrior and strategist, but a leader whose quiet confidence and unwavering resolve inspired countless others to join the Order's cause. With each victory against the monstrous great beasts that roamed the forests of Caliban, L. JONSON's legend grew, and more warriors rallied to his banner. Despite his natural tendency towards solitude, the Lion stood at the forefront of this crusade, leading from the front with courage and skill. His voice rang clear and true, unafraid to speak his mind or take bold action when necessary. Under his leadership, the outdated traditions that had once limited the knightly orders of Caliban were cast aside, and any who did not follow his lead were swept aside with the same fierce determination that had driven him to greatness. Though some within the Order chafed at these changes, their doubts were quickly silenced by the unyielding force of L. JONSON's will, and in the end, his vision provided true, for the great beasts were ultimately defeated after nearly a decade of unrelenting warfare. The walls of the Order's fortresses were adorned with the heads of the fallen monsters, a testament to the Lion's unmatched prowess and unwavering loyalty to his followers. With each victory against the great beasts, the Lion's legend grew, and his influence swelled within the ranks of the Order. The traditions that had limited knightlyhood to the nobility were abolished, and the warriors fought together as one. The Knights of Lupus, who feared the disruption of Caliban's social order, fell before L. JONSON's crusade. As the Order's ranks grew, they ventured deeper into the forest, overtaking all civilizations across Caliban, burning and slaying with grim determination. The Lion showed no mercy, for he knew that to leave any foe alive would be a waste to the lives of his warriors. His methods were ruthless, poisoning the people's water sources, ambushing them as they fed, and setting the forest ablaze. His victories were both awe-inspiring and terrifying, and some of Caliban's aristocrats feared the changes that he had wrought. They rebelled against L. JONSON's new methods, seeking to claim his power for themselves. But they were no match for the Lion's might, and the rebellion was crushed without mercy. The war for Caliban's survival was long and bloody, but Lion L. JONSON would not rest until every last great beast were wiped from the face of the world and every human was united under one banner. And though his warriors were wary of the slaughter, the grim knights pressed on, knowing that there could only be one end, the total annihilation of the enemy by any means necessary. At the end of the long and grueling campaign against the great beasts and the opposers of change, Lion L. JONSON stood tall, his body battered and his spirit wary from the bloodshed. Alongside him, Luther, his fellow warrior and brother, too bore the scars of battle, their once fierce rivalry now supplemented by a bond forged in steel and fire. But despite their shared sacrifice, it was L. JONSON who emerged as the victor, his name immortalized in the scrolls and books of the Order's history as Grand Master. The title was a weighty one, a symbol of his unparalleled skill and unwavering resolve in the face of unspeakable horrors. Yet for the stoic warrior, such accolades held little meaning, for his heart remained as unyielding as ever, untouched by the trappings of fame and glory. As L. Jonson's star rose, Luther watched on with a mix of admiration and envy, his own ambitions now eclipsed by those of his former student. Though he too had fought valiantly and shed blood for the cause, it was the Lion who had won the day, and with it, the hearts of their people. But even as L. Jonson ascended to the heights of power, a wound festered within him, a wound born of the rivalry and jealousy that brewed in Luther's heart. It was a wound that would continue to haunt them both, long after the battlefields had fallen silent and the great beasts had been vanquished. And so it was that fate, in its capriciousness, brought the Emperor to Caliban, offering L. Jonson a new destiny among the stars. The Lion, now commander of the First Legion, renamed the Dark Angels in honor of their grim and resolute nature, would join the Emperor's quest to conquer the galaxy, leaving behind the world and people he had fought so hard to protect. Lion L. Jonson, the grim knight who had led his people to victory against the great beasts of Caliban, was now called to a new destiny. His reputation as a superb warrior and strategist had spread far beyond the borders of his homeworld, and his uncompromising and remorseless style of warfare had earned him a place in the ranks of the mighty Imperial forces. The Emperor himself had summoned Lion L. Jonson to distant Terra to discuss the great plans he had created for him. He would become the bane of monsters and beasts, the bearer of weapons too terrible to entrust to any other. He would be the watchman at the edge of the Emperor's domain, the cold and inevitable destroyer whose name would strike fear into the hearts of all who heard it. Lion L. Jonson would bring to the Imperial forces the lessons he had learned in the black depths of the forest of Caliban. He knew the value of cold, ruthless tenacity, and he would be the first of all Primarchs to embody war distilled into the rawest and most fundamental essence. Death would walk like a man wherever Lion L. Jonson led his forces, and the galaxy would forever be changed by his return.
In the year 846 M30, following their triumphant conquest of the great beasts, the Emperor of Mankind and a small cohort of his Legionis Astartes scouts hailing from the First Legion were drawn to Caliban by a psychic resonance emanating from one of the Primarchs. As the Master of Mankind first made landfall upon the accursed planet, Lion L. Jonson felt a powerful bond between himself and the Emperor and pledged his unyielding fealty to him, and in turn, the Emperor granted the Lion the esteemed honor of leading the First Legion, fashioned from the Primarch's own genetics. The Great Crusade, launched by the Emperor after the darkness of Old Night, aimed to reunite all humanity's scattered colonies and reclaimed their birthright as rulers of the cosmos. The Emperor's Legion of Space Marines cleansed entire star systems of their Xenos oppressors, paving the way for the Imperium's expansion throughout the galaxy. It was during one of these imperialistic conquests that word reached the Emperor's scouts, heralding the rediscovery of the forsaken world of Caliban, purportedly home to one of the lost Primarchs. A select band of the First Legion, mostly veterans of the Host of Death, would venture forth as the Emperor's personal entourage to Caliban, for the bulk of the Legion was entrenched in the front lines of the Great Crusade, executing the Emperor's grand vision. Clad in the formidable black armor emblazoned with the mortuary symbols that had become their emblem, the Dark Angels marched before the stronghold of the Order. The ancient legend of Calibanite lore came to life before their very eyes. It was a sight to behold. The mighty lion at the forefront, his legionaries kneeling in reverential obeisance as the Emperor of Mankind greeted his prodigal son. So began a new chapter in the history of the Imperium, as the Lion L. Jonson, Primarch of the First Legion, embraced his new role as commander of the Emperor's chosen Space Marines. In the wake of their auspicious encounter with the Primarch, the Legion would earn a new moniker for the firstborn of their kind, for he deemed it fitting to test the fortitude of his new followers by engaging in a personal duel with the captain of their company. The lion stood firm, his Calibanite blade meeting the power-filled wreathed weapon of his opponent in a shower of sparks and steel, and emerged victorious, leaving his adversary wounded in the dust. Both sides had gained a newfound respect for each other, and from that day forward, the Primarch bestowed upon the Astartes of the First Legion the title of Dark Angels, a name that swiftly gained traction throughout the ranks. Soon after, the Emperor himself arrived at the Order's stronghold in order to reclaim his long-lost son and welcome Caliban into the fold of the Imperium of Man. The vast forests of Caliban were to be cleared for industry, and the first ties of recruits were to be claimed from among his populace in order to bolster the ranks of the depleted First Legion. The day of the Emperor's arrival was one for the ages, destined to be retold for generations to come in the stories of Calibanite legend. The heavens themselves seemed to part as the great vessel descended from on high, and the Emperor of Mankind reached out to embrace his estranged offspring once more. But the glory of the occasion was not to be left unmarred. Certain conservative knights of the Order, filled with fear and mistrust of the changes that the Imperium and its advanced science and culture would bring to their world, attempted to strike down the Emperor in a brazen act of treachery. Yet their efforts were in vain, as the Astartes of the First Legion moved swiftly and ruthlessly to squash the insurrection and execute the traitors without mercy or hesitation. The Dark Angels had shown their true colors, and in doing so, had earned their place as the Emperor's chosen warriors. News spread like wildfire among the scattered units of the First Legion, but with the news came strife and discord, for the Council of Masters were torn between shame and pride at the state of their legion. Some were filled with remorse, seeing the sorry state of the First Legion that their Primarch would inherit. Yet others sought to atone for their failings, to bring a suitable victory as a trophy to lay at their new lord's feet. Such was the divide among the Legion, split by conflicting emotions and ambitions. But the Lion, he who was their Primarch, had returned, and all across the galaxy, the First Legion was reinvigorated. Some detachments threw themselves into combat with newfound zeal, while others made haste to Caliban, seeking forgiveness from their returned leader. The Emperor himself brought the Lion to Terra to learn of the wars that awaited him and the role he would play in the Imperium's future. And on Caliban, the Space Marines who had accompanied the Emperor put aspirants through rigorous trials and competitions, testing their mettle and character. For only the strongest and most dedicated were deemed worthy of joining the ranks of the First Legion. The fate of the Imperium rested on their shoulders. The Legion had been reborn, and with their Primarch at their helm, they would carve their way through the galaxy, fighting for glory of the Emperor and the future of humanity. In the wake of the Lion's arrival back on Caliban, the planet was plunged into tumult. The knightly orders that had long vied for dominance were now faced with a new reality, the arrival of the Primarch and his Space Marines, who stood united in purpose and unyielding in will. It was time of great change, a time when the fate of Caliban and its people hung in the balance. For many, the trials and competitions held by the Dark Angels were seen as a chance to prove themselves worthy of a place among the Astartes. But these trials served a more crucial purpose, to determine if Caliban's population was genetically pure enough to be considered as a recruiting world for the First Legion. And so it was that the future of the planet itself rested on the outcome of these grueling tests. As the Dark Angels set about their task, the knightly orders of Caliban found themselves disarmed and disbanded. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but one that was necessary if Caliban was to become a true bastion of the Imperium. The Lion spoke of unity and glory, and many were swayed by his words, but not all were so easily convinced. Resistance to the Primarch's vision only grew when the Imperial army arrived on Caliban's surface. The Dark Angels had already identified the most likely candidates for recruitment into their ranks, but the vast majority of the planet's population would still serve as troops of the Imperial army. Many saw this as an affront to their pride and independence, and tensions ran high. Yet for all the turmoil and uncertainty, there was a sense of excitement in the air. The arrival of the Primarch and his legion had brought with it a promise of a new era, a time of unity and glory under the banner of the Emperor. For those who had the strength and courage to see it through, there would be no greater honor than to serve alongside the Dark Angels in the battle to come. In a flash of time that defied comprehension, the verdant forests and grand castles of Caliban were transmuted into a crucible of war. The rhythmic beat of hammer and the thunderous march of armored boots echoed across the once peaceful world as the people of Caliban toiled tirelessly to ready themselves for interstellar conflict that loomed on the horizon. The Emperor's agent had descended upon the world, their titanic machines of war carving through the dense foliage with ruthless efficiency, leaving naught but barren earth in their wake. Mines and foundries were swiftly erected, their hulking furnaces belching black smoke into the sky as they churned out an endless supply of war material to fuel the Emperor's unstoppable advance. And as the sprawling industrial complexes grew, towering cities arose to serve their insatiable appetite for resources. The traditional villages and towns that had once dotted the landscape were emptied of their citizens, their inhabitants whisked away to serve the Imperium's insatiable thirst for soldiers and workers alike. The auspicious moment had come when the chosen few had displayed unparalleled bravery, unyielding stamina, and Herculean strength during the grueling Astartes trials were deemed worthy to be inducted into its glorious ranks of the First Legion. News had spread throughout the galaxy that the Astartes had made their final selection for advanced training and the gen enhancements required to join their ranks. These valiant aspirants, whose courage had been proven beyond doubt, had endured the grueling trial of the First Legion and emerged victorious. Through the application of the Imperial science and the wonders of gene seed, they were transformed over the course of several standard years into battle brothers of the newly renamed Dark Angels, the glorious First Legion. But not all who had answered the call were destined for such greatness. Though Luther had also been chosen by the Astartes to join their ranks, he and many others of the Calibanite knightly orders were deemed too old for the implantations of gene seed. Instead, they underwent a rigorous regimen of genetic, surgical, and biochemical enhancement procedures designed to elevate them beyond the capabilities of mere mortals. They were now taller, stronger, and quicker than any human, but still not true Astartes. It was a bitter truth to swallow, as Luther and his comrades watched the Astartes surge past them in power and skill. They were surrounded by those who had once been their squires and junior knights, now transformed into living legends. Yet despite their setbacks, Luther and the others remained steadfast in their loyalty to the First Legion and the Emperor, and pledged to serve them with all of their enhanced might. Luther, the steadfast and loyal servant of the Lion, remained his trusted second-in-command within the First Legion. He had earned his position through sheer merit and unwavering dedication to the Imperial cause, yet despite his achievements, he could not shake off the nagging sense of inadequacy that gnawed at his heart. The constant reminder of his mortality and lack of full Astartes status weighed heavily on his soul, and he felt as though he was constantly being judged and found wanted by those around him. But despite these doubts, Luther remained resolute in his duty to the Lion and the Imperium, ready to lay down his life for the cause at any moment's notice. Lionel Johnson, first among the Emperor's chosen, was a being of singular focus and relentless determination. His brothers, and their fanciful ideals and personal vendettas, were but distractions to his true purpose, the eradication of all threats to mankind. He knew that the war that he had fought on Caliban was only a prelude to a greater battle for the fate of the galaxy. With the mind as sharp as his blade, he saw through the complexities of strategy and tactic, seeing only the end goal of victory. While others wavered and hesitated, the Lion plunged forward, unwavering in his commitment to the Emperor's cause. Some called him dour and morose, but such labels meant nothing to a warrior whose sole purpose was to kill. He was more than a man, yet less than a god, a primal force of destruction unmatched by any of his kin. Even the mighty Magnus the Red could not match his inhuman determination. He could meet Fulgrim's blade and counter Rabute Gilliman's strategies, for though some may surpass him in certain tasks, in a grander scope of battle, there was none his equal. The Lion held no time for Sanguinius's chivalric ideals, Mortarian's irrational grudges, or Fulgrim's fixation on beauty. He saw such emotions as distractions from the true goal, the eradication of mankind's enemies. His unwavering focus and unyielding confidence which some may consider as arrogance, earned him few friends, yet swiftly propelled him to the head of his legion, faster than any of the Primarchs rediscovered before him. Truly, Lionel Johnson was a being of singular purpose, whose dedication to the Emperor's cause was unmatched by any other. Yet the First Legion had fallen in a state of disarray and disunity. Bereft of purpose and direction in the vast expanse of the Great Crusade, a powerful fighting force they remained, but their teachings had become outdated, and their knowledge was surpassed by their younger brethren. It was a time of great need, and a time for a hero to rise. And rise he did. Lionel Johnson came to his children at a time of great turmoil. He merged the best of Terra and Caliban, the techno-feudal aristocracies and the teachings of the Hexagrammaton to create something new, something refined. He brought his scattered sons together, and with them he embarked on a new crusade of his own. His first acts were to gather the worthy among the Knights of Caliban, implant them with the gene seed, and train them with live fire exercises and hypnotic indoctrination. He was a visionary, and he envisioned a new beginning for his legion, one that would match his own methods and his own vision for the Emperor's Great Crusade. At his side were the original 500 warriors that had arrived on Caliban, including chapters and battle groups that had pledged their allegiance to him. Alongside them were the auxilia companies raised from the stock of Caliban, and a retinue of Mechanicum Magi from the Forge World of Xena II, eager to curry favor with the new Primarch. Together, they numbered 20,000 warriors, a third of the Legion, each marked by the new beginning they were pledged to, adorned with the winged swords of Lionel Johnson's Dark Angels, a symbol of their rebirth and newfound purpose. The galaxy trembled at the arrival of Lionel Johnson, his hosts of warriors numbering in the thousands. With a singular purpose in mind, he sought out his scattered gene sons who had yet to hear his call to arms. Amidst the countless armies fighting for the Emperor's glory, the task seemed insurmountable. But the Lion was no ordinary Primarch, and his genius shone through as he devised a plan to locate his lost warriors. The tech adepts of Xena II, eager to win favor with their new gene father, used their advanced technology to sift through the vast databanks of Divisio Militaris. The Lion's keen mind combined with the adept's skill allowed them to pinpoint the battles where his legion bled and died, and in doing so, track down the scattered remnants of his army. But when the warriors of the First Legion heard their Primarch's approach, they did not celebrate. Instead, they fought with greater furiosity, determined to offer their gene father nothing less than victory. They hurled themselves into battle, heedless of their own safety, fighting to the last man so that when Lionel Johnson arrived, he would see the fruits of their sacrifice and know that his sons were worthy of their name. Each battle-worn company received their new master with silent courtesy and brief but solemn vows of allegiance, and each was tested by the Primarch himself before they joined the ranks of his growing entourage. For the Lion demonstrated his worth by his actions and skill rather than words and vague promises. He allowed those who doubted him to match their blades against his in honest combat, so that none among the Legion could question his right to lead after such a trial. In a few short standard years, the Lion gathered nearly 100,000 warriors, a vast majority of his Legion, and led them to the ancient stronghold of the First Legion on Grammari. There, surrounded by the dusty trophies of the past, he made his Legion whole once again. He faced the ceremonial champion of the Councils of Masters in the Ring of Honor, battling Pyrrhus Calgat, the master of the Host of Fire, in an hour-long duel that has since become legend. With this final trial, he accepted the titles of Grand Master of the First Legion, the Six Wings of Hexagrammaton, the High Preceptor of the Order Militant, and the First Legion, consolidating the leadership of the entire Legion under one banner. Though some within the Legion harbored misgivings at the sudden changes the Primarch brought to the century-old doctrines of the Legion and the shift in authority he represented, none could deny the strength of his leadership. And so, Lionel Johnson, with his mighty prowess in battle and his iron will, forged his Legion anew, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead in the Emperor's Great Crusade. Before the assembled warriors of the Dark Angels, their Genefather spoke words that would forever echo through their halls of history. His voice rang out like a call to arms, commanding the attention and loyalty of every warrior in his presence. With a solemn and steadfast gaze, he swore an oath to bind his legion to their new purpose, an oath that would serve as a beacon of hope in the darkness that threatened to engulf the galaxy. His words were etched into the annals of time, inscribed in the ancient tomes of the Council of Masters.
"We are the Angels of Darkness,"
he declared, his voice ringing out with conviction.
"No peace shall we know, no end but war and death. We shall not walk in gilded halls of mankind's future, but stand firm in the shadows beyond. While we draw breath, this Imperium will not falter, and we shall not taste defeat. I pledge every warrior, every drop of blood in the Legion to the cause of victory, no matter the cost."
The warriors of the Dark Angels listened in rapt attention, their hearts afire with the words of their Genefather. For in his oath, they saw the promise of glory and the assurance of victory. They knew that no matter the trials that lay ahead, they would stand together, united in their purpose and unwavering in their resolve. And with their Genefather leading them, they would fight until the end of days, in need be, to ensure that the Imperium prevailed.
Lion L. Johnson History, the Great Crusade, and the Achievements of the First Legion. From the celestial tapestry of destiny, woven by the Emperor's divine hand, emerged a pantheon of valor unmatched. Amidst the tumultuous age of the Great Crusade, when the Imperium of Man sought to bind the scattered realms of humanity into a unified whole, 20 legions of Space Marines were forged, like gleaming shards of celestial steel, to bear the Emperor's will across the stars. In the crucible of Terra's unification wars, where the flame of conflict scorched the hallowed soil, it was the First Legion who stood as the Emperor's firstborn warriors. Under his direct command, they fought, their indomitable spirits ablaze with righteous fury, carving a path towards unity with every stroke of their weapons. Yet, as destiny wove its intricate threads, the Emperor's gaze fell upon Caliban, a feral world with untapped potential. There, the Primarch Lionel Johnson, the embodiment of celestial might, awaited his fateful reunion with his legion birthed from his own flesh and soul, the Dark Angels. With the Primarch's arrival, the mantle of command passed into his hands, and he, the Lion among men, assumed leadership over the Dark Angels. And so it was, as the eons whispered their secrets, the Lion L. Johnson, bearing the weight of the Legion's destiny upon his broad shoulders, ascended to the helm of the 4th Expeditionary Fleet. United under his banner, the Dark Angels embarked on the Celestial Odyssey, their names inscribed in the annals of conquest and their valorous deeds illuminating the path towards the Imperial's grand design. Thus, the Great Crusade surged forth, driven by the Emperor's will, aided by his noble sons. Amidst the stars, the Legion blazed, their souls kindled with unwavering loyalty and boundless courage. Through their triumphs, they sculpted a new era, forging the Imperium of Man with blood and iron. Compliance of Malik. Amidst the somber pages of time, a chapter unfolded. A campaign that marked the early days of Lionel Johnson's reign as commander of the illustrious Dark Angel Legion. This momentous endeavor entailed the imperial compliance of the enigmatic night world known as Moloch. Its execution embodied a testament to the collective might of Legiones Astartes, as the Dark Angels, alongside the Luna Wolves, Emperor's Children, White Scars, and numerous contingents of Imperialis Auxilia, Mechanicum, and Legio Titanicus embarked upon its grand endeavor. Under the mantle of Governance, Kypron Divine, Skion and House Divine ascended as planetary governor, tasked with shepherding Moloch into the embraces of the Imperial Order. In the presence of his esteemed Primarch sons, the Emperor, the beacon of mankind's hope, led them towards the hidden depths of subterranean realms. There, concealed from mortal eyes, lay a warp gate, an enigmatic conduit to the ethereal domains of chaos itself. With unwavering purpose, the Emperor traversed the thresholds of this gateway,
venturing into the perilous maw of the ruinous powers. Time, a forgotten concept within those shadowed realms, slipped away as the Emperor communed with the very essence of chaos. When, at last, he emerged from the treacherous embrace, his visage bore the weight of ages, a testament to the trials endured and power attained. The memory of Moloch, that tumultuous theater of cosmic struggle, was shrouded in the depths of oblivion, for the Emperor chose to suppress the recollection within his sons' minds. And so, the secrets of Moloch remained concealed, guarded by the stalwart garrison, a formidable force comprised of nearly 100 regiments of Imperialis Auxilia, their banners raised high, stood sentinel over the warp gate's mysteries. 3 Legionis Titanicus cohorts, their towering war machines resolute, joined their ranks, while detachments hailing from 2 Space Marine legions added their marital prowess to this bastion of protection. The echoes of Moloch's tale faded into the tapestry of forgotten lore. The stoic guardians of the warp gate, steadfast in their duty, vowed to preserve the enigma of that world, safeguarding its secrets from the clutches of time. In silence, they stood as a bulwark against the encroaching shadows, ever watchful, ever vigilant, for the Imperium's destiny rested upon them. Second and Third Rangdang Genocides. In the year 862 of the 30th millennium, the First Legion and Lionel JONSON embarked upon the next chapter of the Celestial Saga, the monumental campaigns of the final Rangdang xenocides. In this epoch-defining struggle, their valor intertwined with the mighty titans of multiple Legio households, while the Forge world of Xena II unleashed its Xenite Mechanicum forces to join the righteous fray. The tempest of conflict erupted, as the Rangda, that vile Xenos terror believed vanquished in the first Rangdang xenocides, surged forth from the abyss. Their numbers defied comprehension, a relentless onslaught assaulting the northern frontiers of the Imperium. For nearly a solar decade, the veterans of the once called First Legion, now reborn as Dark Angels, stood resolute, battling against the enemy that hungered for the annihilation of every world under mankind's protection. Lionel JONSON himself descended upon the Rangda with an icy fury. Unlike his brother Sanguinius, the radiant hero, or the black-humored figurehead Horus Lupercal, the Lion was a silent sentinel against the storm. He did not evoke loyalty through his words or virtuous deeds. Instead, he strode where the enemy thrived, shrouded in armor of his pride and unyielding confidence. Others, drawn by the simple honor of standing by his side, followed in his wake. In the darkest of hours, the Lion's presence cast a pall over the battlefield, a harbinger of death for the Rangda and a beacon of hope for those who fought alongside him. With each stride, he carved a path through the encroaching horde, his blade cleaving through their twisted ranks. His stoic resolve, like an unyielding fortress, inspired awe in the hearts of allies and struck fear into the souls of his foes. Amidst the carnage of chaos, the Dark Angels and their allies waged a war of survival, the clash of empires echoing across the stars. Their valor and sacrifice, an unyielding testament to the unbreakable spirit of the Imperium, held the line against the ravenous Xenos tide. And in the heart of this maelstrom, the Lion forged a legacy steeped in blood and vengeance. And so, for the span of a solar decade, the celestial symphonies of war resounded across the heavens. 9 noble Space Marine legions converged upon the fray, unleashing devastation upon the ravenous colonies strewn across the northern sectors of the Imperium. In this crucible of strife, humanity's bastions were rent asunder, engulfed in the inferno of conflict. Throughout these trials, the legions, champions of mankind's might, bore witness to the harrowing toll of battle. The Space Wolves, their feral might undiminished, lamented the loss of 5,000 stalwart Astartes, their valor piercing the siege of Xena with resolute fervor. The Dark Angels, gathered once more in their resplendent numbers, were not spared from the crucible of sacrifice, for they too paid the price in blood. In the countless battles on the fringes of the Halo stars, they shattered the superior strength of the abhorrent Xenos, their righteous fury and unyielding tempest that swept aside all opposition. This relentless campaign reached its zenith in the apocalyptic maelstrom of the Third Rangdang xenocide. a cataclysmic clash that reverberated across the stars in the year 890 of the 30th millennium. It was a desperate endeavor, a final stand to prevent the annihilation of the Northern Imperium at the hands of the alien terrors lurking within the outer darkness. Amidst the storm, the great citadel of Vorsag trembled beneath the weight of the Dark Angel's fury. The void echoed with the symphony of colliding warships above Morkar, where the heavens bore witness to a 7-solar week-long clash. In the Crucible of Morrow, where 3 resolute companies of Dark Angels defiantly held the line against the relentless tide of 1,000,000 Rangdang Nero-shackled servitors, victory was forged in the baptism of blood. In the aftermath of triumph, as the echoes of conflict faded into memory, it became painfully evident that the Dark Angels had been forever altered. Their ranks, once teeming with warriors, now stood diminished. The price of victory exacted a toll so grievous that only 1/10 of their former numbers remained. Their hallowed brotherhood forever changed. Whispers and conjectures shrouded the grim fate of the old legion, like ethereal veils woven from half-truths and shadowed secrets. Some claimed they fought to prove themselves worthy of their new master, while others whispered of a haunting need to rectify their past failures. Their inability to vanquish the Rangda in a crucible of battle of Advex Moors, and yet a sinister murmur lingered, suggesting that the Lion had sent them to their doom, intending to replace them with more compliant warriors from Caliban. The truth, elusive and obscured, remained a mystery. However, it was the very heart of Caliban that the Lion turned, seeking solace and renewal for his embattled legion. With the Rangdang plague pushed back, the fresh tide of true Calibanite space marines surged forth, replenishing the ranks of what had been decimated. No longer confined to the select few companions of the Primarch, these warriors dispersed across the vast tapestry of the Legion, finding their place in every wing of the Order. A new breed of warrior graced the halls of the First Legion, their path guided by the weight of tradition and a cadence of ritual. Unburdened by the weighty pride that had served as the lodestar of their Terran brethren, they ventured forth, marked by the legacy of the second Rangdang xenocide. It was this transformed legion that embarked on the ceaseless crusade, a relentless pursuit of their noble cause, as they clashed with the most abhorrent adversaries that besmirched the galaxy. Like celestial seeds carried by the winds of fate, they scattered from Caliban to the far reaches of the stars. Unlike their brethren, who sought to claim mighty fortresses and hold dominion over conquered lands, they sought solace in lonely holds that safeguarded the ancient knowledge of the Legion. Each expeditionary fleet became an indomitable force, entrusted with the duty of patrolling the dark corners where monstrous threats still lurked. Among them, the Lion assumed command of a fleet no more grand or imposing than the rest, for he knew that each vessel would be an instrument of death, capable of triumphing over any foe. With purpose unswerving, he set a course towards the world known to the Imperial cartographers as Sarash. Yet due to the devastating losses incurred during the Rangdang xenocides, the First Legion teetered on the precipice of decline. By the year 899 of the 30th millennium, the Ultramarine Legion, like an unstoppable tide, threatened to surpass them in number, their forces swelling to approximately 166,000 legionaries. The scales of power shifted, the shadows of uncertainty cast upon the once mighty Dark Angels, as they stood poised on the threshold of a new era fraught with challenges and the burden of redemption. Feud of Dulin. In the ceaseless march of the Space Marine legions, a relentless contest for superiority unfolded. Each Primarch, born of the Emperor's will, yearned to etch their names upon the grand halls of triumph, to ascend ever higher in the Emperor's esteem. Amongst these warriors, none burned with a more fervent desire for excellence than Leman Russ, the indomitable Primarch of the Space Wolves. Only Horus Lupercal and Lionel Johnson could boast a greater tally of victories, and this knowledge chafed at the wolf's spirit, an unyielding thorn in his side. Yet it was upon the war-torn world of Dulin, amidst the crucible of battle, that the simmering tensions between the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves ignited in a blaze of rivalry destined to span the ages. United in purpose, their fates entwined upon the fateful world, the Space Wolves fought shoulder to shoulder with the Dark Angels, as echoes of conflict reverberated across the blood-soaked terrain. It was within the heart of this cataclysmic clash that the flames of discord flickered to life. Durath, the defiant planetary governor of Dulin, dared to cast scorn upon Leman Russ, branding him not the Emperor's lapdog. Such insolence, a provocation that stroked the embers of fury within Russ, ignited an inferno of rage. Vowed to personally extinguish the impudent governor, he demanded the honor of leading the assault. But Lionel Johnson, a master tactician with a strategic mind that rivaled the stars, had meticulously woven the threads of battle, refusing to let his brother's temper jeopardize his carefully laid plans. In the throes of that fateful assault, Lionel Johnson, a figure resplendent in his regal might, took charge, commanding the vanguard with unwavering determination. Leman Russ, the Wolf King, watched with mounting frustration as his brother, like a tempest unleashed, swiftly dispatched of the insolent Durath, severing the governor's defiance with a stroke of righteous retribution. Yet as the echoes of victory resounded, a tempest of emotion surged within the heart of the wolf, a tempest that could not be restrained. With a storm raging in his eyes, Russ stormed into the very heart of the fortress, a torrent of fury unleashed. In that hollow chamber, the clash of Primarchs reverberated, an embodiment of raw power and will. Blow after blow, they exchanged, their clash unfolding amidst the symphony of titanic force. A relentless battle ensued. The two paragons of war locked in a dance that defied mortal understanding. For a solar day and night, their struggle endured, each a formidable force, equally matched in strength and agility. Russ, a beacon of unmatched power, possessed the raw might that quaked the very foundation of the earth. Meanwhile, the Lion, a blur of calculated precision, danced with ethereal grace, his strikes as swift as a fleeting comet. But as the sun began to ascend anew, a realization, like a sliver of enlightenment, pierced the shrouded mists of their wrath. Russ, amidst the tempest of their clash, was struck by a profound truth, a moment of clarity that shattered the illusion of their futile struggle. A laughter, tingled with the weight of self-awareness, cascaded from his lips, acknowledging the folly that had ensnared them both. The Wolf King, humbled by his own hubris, found solace in the revelations of his own shortcomings. Yet, the embers of anger still smoldered within the Lion's heart, stoked by the perceived betrayal within the first punch that had ignited their clash. Fueled by lingering wrath, he delivered one final blow, a testament to his lingering ire, sending the laughing wolf into the realm of unconsciousness. And as Leman Russ succumbed to the darkness, the Dark Angels, their purpose fulfilled, departed to new frontiers in the ever-unfolding tapestry of the Great Crusade. Since that momentous encounter, a solemn tradition had been forged, binding the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves in a ritual of honor. Whenever the paths of the chosen champions from both chapters converge, a non-lethal duel ensues, a testament of the ever-burning flame of honor for the quest of retribution. Yet, there was also those who, despite the momentary lapse of judgment, understand the true meaning of loyalty and friendship. Such was the case of the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves and their Primarchs, Lionel Johnson and Leman Russ. Though they clashed on the world of Dulin, it was not out of spite or malice, but rather a passionate display of their unbreakable spirit. These two warriors, so alike in their character and values, held loyalty as a sacred tenet and valued action over mere words. The Battle of Dulin did not create a rift between the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves, but rather served to solidify their bond, and in the years that followed, they fought together with a sense of shared camaraderie. It is true that the two Primarchs engaged in a fierce battle, but the notion that it spawned a lasting grudge between them is a falsehood. In fact, the record suggests that their mutual respect and admiration only grew stronger with each passing battle. Their similarities in character, their shared values, and their unyielding loyalty to their oaths all served to forge a bond between them that would endure the test of time. Side by side, they traversed 1,000 worlds, leaving their mark on every battlefield. While Dulin stood as but one of the many trials they faced, it held a special significance, a testament to their unwavering loyalty and shared strength together. Their loyalty knew no bounds, for in the darkest hour of rebellion, when Horus, the Arch-Traitor himself, threatened to engulf the Imperium in darkness, the Wolves of Fenris and the Knights of Caliban stood shoulder to shoulder. The very foundations of Terra trembled beneath the weight of their reunion, as brothers in arms, ready to face the siege that threatened their emperor. No greater symbol could exist in exemplifying the loyalty shared between these two noble legions. United once more, their combined might was a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching shadows. They cast aside old grudges and embraced their shared purpose to defend the Imperium and its sacred sovereignty. The saga of the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves intertwines with the legends of unity and courage. They stand as a testament to the unbreakable bonds that can be forged amidst the turmoil of war, where true brethren, driven by unshakable loyalty, unite to face the most formidable of adversaries. Subjugation of Sarash. The Dark Angels' 4th Expeditionary Fleet, under the command presence of Lionel Johnson, embarked upon a momentous endeavor. Their destination, the war-torn realm of Sarash. Once, Sarash had stood beneath the banner of the White Scar Legion, its halls echoing the resounding battle cries of the swift warriors who held dominion over the tumultuous lands. But fate, like a tempestuous gust, summoned Lionel Johnson, beckoning him to answer the desperate plea of his brother, Jagatai Khan. A bond of kinship forged amidst the tempestuous maelstrom of their differences, for they recognized within each other the virtues of honesty and candor. Thus, the lion, honor-bound, could not disregard the call that resonated within his very soul. The Sarosi, ruled by the labyrinthian web of planetary bureaucracy, had expressed their fervent desire to join the hollowed ranks of the Imperium. With hopeful hearts, the Imperials, guided by their shared secular belief entrenched in the imperial truth, eagerly welcomed these people into their cosmic fold. However, time, relentless in its march, weighed heavily upon the Sarosi, as compliance eluded their grasp. Apologies flowed ceaselessly from their lips, beseeching forgiveness from the chosen imperial governor, hurled first, as their convoluted bureaucracy hindered the swift progress that they had so earnestly sought. Unbeknownst by the imperial expedition, shrouded within the shadows of secrecy, the Sarosi harbored a dark allegiance. Deep within the recesses of their soul, they worshipped sinister entities of chaos within the warp. The accursed beings, christened Melkheim by their devotees, remained concealed, a forbidden truth concealed from the prying eyes of the Imperium. In their distorted perception, the anti-religious tenets of the pre-Heresy's Imperium's imperial truth appeared as the embodiment of unrestrained hate, a malignancy that demanded their utmost fealty. The Lord High Exactor, the architect of Sarosi bureaucracy, was summoned to the grandiose sanctuary of the Invincible Reason. Within the hallowed halls of the Dark Angel's flagship, the stage was set for a cataclysmic encounter, a gathering of primeval forces, one a paragon of unrivaled power, the other a harbinger of fanaticism. The Lord High Exactor dared to defy the Primarch's might. With the venomous words dripping from his treacherous tongue, he unleashed his blasphemous denunciation upon Lionel Johnson and the Emperor himself. Such audacity, uttered in the very presence of the Primarch, heralded a reason to awake the dormant fury within the lion-hearted warrior. With his eyes ablaze like an unyielding flame of a burning star, Lionel Johnson drew forth his gleaming power sword, a weapon forged in the crucible of righteous wrath. In a swift and decisive motion, his hand guided by the fates themselves, the Primarch's blade found its mark, impelling the fanatical Sarosi leader. Yet, Amidst the tangled web of deception and betrayal, a sinister plot lay dormant, concealed within the hearts of the Sarosi delegation. A clandestine nuclear device had been smuggled aboard their shuttle, intended to unleash a devastating blow upon the esteemed command structure of the fleet, erasing both Lionel Johnson and his loyal brethren in one stroke. However, fate, fickle and capricious, intervened with a glimmer of hope. Luther, a trusted confidant, and Zahariel Elzarius, a junior librarian, unveiled the lurking menace. In a desperate act of defiance, they jettisoned the shuttle into the cold abyss of space, sparing the flagship from utter destruction. Minor wounds, both physical and emotional, were suffered, but the Primarch's life remained intact. Luther, burdened by the festering jealousy that had entwined his wary soul, confessed his dark contemplations of allowing the device to claim the life of his oldest friend. The rebels of Sarash, their treacherous machinations exposed, would soon face the wrath of the Dark Angels and the legions of the Imperium. The iron fist of justice descended upon them with merciless efficiency, crushing their insidious rebellion. Yet, even in the wake of triumph, a somber atmosphere permeated the battlefield. Lingering questions seeped into the hearts of many as they pondered the ease of which the Sarosi had penetrated the defenses of the First Legion. Though treachery remained unspoken, doubts began to weave their subtle tendrils, challenging the steadfast devotion of those who walked the Legion's newfound path. Luther, Zahariel, and 500 loyal Dark Angels, veterans of both Terra and Caliban, found themselves cast back to the scorched soil of their forsaken homeworld. Not held as victors, nor condemned to exile, they were assigned a role of guardians, tasked with overseeing the Lion Sanctuary. Their duty extended to the arduous task of recruiting new Space Marines for the Calibanite populace, drawing strength from their shared heritage. Thus, they were severed from the grand tapestry of the Great Crusade, regardless of the countless standard years they had devoted to the Legion, whether within the enchanted forests of Caliban or among the distant stars. Jonson was in the midst of his military campaign against the Guardian League within the Shield Worlds when he received unsettling news of Horus's treacherous betrayal. Understanding the grave implications of Horus's rebellion, the Lion realized that the ultimate test for the War Master would be the confrontation with the Emperor on Terra. As long as the Emperor remained safely ensconced within the protective walls of the Imperial Palace, Horus could never truly achieve victory and assume control over humanity. Determined to thwart Horus's plan, Jonson devised a plan to prevent the War Master from successfully launching his assault on the Imperial Palace. With a modest force under his command, the Lion embarked on a daring expedition to the Forge World of Diamat. His objective was to secure several formidable siege weapons that would be crucial for Horus's intended attack on Terra. Despite facing overwhelming odds, Jonson demonstrated his exceptional strategic acumen and managed to secure the highly coveted siege weapons. In a stroke of tactical brilliance, he appeared to have defeated the War Master with only a small contingent of troops, leaving Horus confounded by his unexpected setback. Following his triumph at Diamat, the Lion encountered Perturabo, who was en route to join Ferrus Manus in the battle against Horus on Istvan V, alongside other legions. Recognizing a golden opportunity to position himself as a potential successor to Horus, Jonson struck a deal with Perturabo. He traded a capital siege weapon to Perturabo in exchange for his support in assuming the new role of War Master. However, unbeknownst to Jonson, Perturabo was secretly aligned with Horus, as later unveiled by his actions during the events of Istvan V. Without delay, after the siege of Diamat and Perturabo's acquisition of the siege engines, the Primarch of the Dark Angels swiftly turned to the Shield Worlds, where the majority of his legion was operating, with the immediate intent of proceeding towards Terra. As a part of Horus's calculated strategy to divert loyalist legions away from Terra, the Night Lord's Legion, commanded by Conrad Kurz, was dispatched to the eastern fringes. Engaged in the Thrumus Crusade, the Night Lords wreaked havoc upon numerous loyalist worlds, leaving destruction and terror in their wake. Amidst this brutal campaign, Kurz extended an invitation to the lion for a meeting on the planet Seguauzla. During their encounter, Kurz unveiled a prophecy to the lion, providing insight into the future of the Dark Angels. However, the meeting quickly deteriorated into violent clash, resulting in the lion departing with a grievous throat wound, while Kurz suffered a blade in his back. In the aftermath, the lion acquired a warp engine of immense power, named Tuchulcha, enabling him to coordinate entire fleets during warp jumps. Nonetheless, the lion's decision to employ librarians to combat demons during their journey ignited internal strife within the Dark Angels, leading to a bitter dispute that culminated in the lion slaying Namil, one of his own. During a crucial battle, the lion confronted Koros Fateweaver, a greater demon, who sought to corrupt him and sway his allegiance to chaos. However, the lion, unwaveringly loyal to the Emperor, rendered him impervious to any corrupting influence. Swiftly recognizing the threat, the lion dispatched Koros Fateweaver, impaling the Lord of Change through his heart, thereby reaffirming his unyielding dedication to his cause. Lionel Johnson, in his pursuit of Conrad Kurz and his legion of Night Lords, finally engaged in a momentous battle on Reboot Gilliman's homeworld of Macragge. Utilizing his tactical prowess, he orchestrated a cunning ambush that led to the confrontation with the brother Primarchs for the second time. The Night Lord's legion, severely wounded, left the battlefield with Kurz rendered comatose. Seizing the opportunity, the lion orchestrated a second ambush as the Night Lords regrouped. In a twist of fate, Kurz awakened and, accompanied by a contingent of his forces, boarded the Invincible Reason, a vessel of great magnitude. The fierce battle concluded with Kurz retreating to his ship's lower decks, while surviving Night Lords, including the first captain Sevatar, were taken captive. However, Kurz remained at large within the vast confines of the ship, unleashing terror and relentless elimination of every search team sent by the lion. Determined to bring his elusive brother to justice, the lion personally embarked on a 16-week hunt through the Invincible Reason, ceaselessly stalking Kurz but never managing to locate him. Due to the rune storm orchestrated by the Wordbearers, the Dark Angels found themselves cut off from the intended return to Terra under the lion's command. Instead, they followed the beacon emitted by Pharos and made their way to Ultramar, where they joined forces with the Ultramarines and Blood Angels, led by their respective Primarchs, Reboot Gilliman and Sanguinius. Together, the three Primarchs played pivotal roles in the establishment of Imperium Secundus, a new empire. The Lion was appointed as Lord Protector of this nascent dominion, a position akin to that of War Master. When Kurz escaped from the Invincible Reason and unleashed chaos upon Macragge, the Lion joined Gilliman in a valiant yet unsuccessful attempt to vanquish the Road Primarch. However, the entire battle had been a cunning trap, as Kurz brought down the very chapel in which they clashed. The survival of Lionel Johnson and Gilliman was owed to the intervention of Barbarous Dantioch, who activated the Ferris, teleporting them to the planet Sotha. Haunted by a sense of responsibility for Kurz's violent rampages throughout Ultramar, the Lion became consumed by an obsessive pursuit of his dark and elusive brother. In the Zepeth system, Lionel Johnson assumed command of the Deathwing, unleashing havoc upon the forces of Wordbearers and World Eaters in an unrelenting quest to locate Kurz. As the Lion and Gilliman continued to clash over the policies of Imperium Secundus, tension escalated, particularly concerning the handling of rebels on Macragge, whom the Dark Angel Primarch believed were influenced by Kurz. In response to the devastating suicide bombing targeting the Astartes convoy, Lionel Johnson invoked martial law on Macragge, utilizing his legion to establish order. Convinced that Kurz was concealed within the rebellious Illurium Legion, the Lion advocated for employing weapons of mass destruction from orbit to eradicate the threat. However, facing opposition from both Sanguinius and Gilliman regarding this extreme measure, the Lion redirected the Deathwing to flush out Kurz and the rebels, deploying his forces to accomplish the task at hand. During the assault on Alma Mons, a pivotal moment occurred when the Lion successfully cornered Kurz, resulting in a fierce clash between the two Primarchs. Engaged in a brutal battle, the Lion eventually emerged as the victor. In an attempt to comprehend Kurz's motivations, the Lion questioned his brother's betrayal, to which Kurz cryptically replied,
"Why not?"
He confessed to the presence of an uncontrollable inner monster that drove him to commit heinous acts. Rather than delivering a fatal blow, the lion pulled back, acknowledging his inability to kill Kurz, but promptly unleashed another barrage of strikes upon him. With a display of immense strength, the lion tore off Kurz's backpack and delivered a devastating blow, breaking his spine and leaving him paralyzed. Instead of passing judgment upon himself, the lion presented Kurz before Sanguinius and Guilliman to face trial. Kurz openly admitted to his actions but refused to accept guilt, asserting that he was compelled to act in such a manner, absolving him of the responsibility of his crimes. Further exasperating tension, Kurz accused the lion of orchestrating secret orbital attacks and sowing discord between Guilliman and Sanguinius. Enraged and seeking retribution, the lion attempted to end Kurz's life, but Sanguinius intervened with words of wisdom, while Guilliman shattered the lion's sword, symbolizing the fracture within the triumvirate. Consumed by anger, the lion was dismissed by Sanguinius, effectively ending Imperium Secundus and banishing him from their midst. Within hours of his dismissal, the Dark Angels withdrew from the planet, leaving behind the turmoil. Haunted by doubt and introspection, the lion brooded over his past decisions, including the exile of Luther, as he stood in the presence of the agmatic warp engine to Tolcha. In due course, his council convened. The lion declared to return to Caliban, their homeworld. However, before their departure, a thought struck the lion, compelling him to command Chicholcha to teleport him to the Holguin to Sanguinius' chamber on Macragge. Just moments before Sanguinius could execute Kurz, the lion materialized, imploring the angel to halt his actions. Troops swarmed into the chamber, demanding the lion surrender, but he countered by presenting Kurz's claim that his death would be at the hands of an assassin, a prophecy sent by the emperor himself. For the lion, this was evidence that their father still lived. Sanguinius, recognizing the validity of his own visions of impending death, pondered the fate of Kurz. The lion humbly knelt before his brothers, vowing to serve as Kurz's jailer. Thus Kurz remained a captive aboard the Invincible Reason, with occasional visits from the lion in an attempt to extract information from his prophetic visions, albeit with little cooperation from the Night Hunter.
Following Kurz's trial, Sanguinius, Lionel Johnson, and Guilliman concurred on the necessity to breach the Runestorm and reach Terra to provide aid to the Emperor, whose continued existence had been revealed to them. Within the treacherous Runestorm, the Loyalist fleet confronted various horrors and rumors of a destructive entity known as Pilgrims. Even the advanced capabilities of Totolcha proved inadequate in navigating this tumultuous anomaly, frustrating the lion. Amidst the Battle of Pharaon, as Sanguinius received a crucial vision, he realized that their path led back to where their struggle began. Davin. Reluctantly, Guilliman and the lion concluded to trust Sanguinius, although they had initially contemplated obliterating the planet upon arrival. Hovering over Davin, Sanguinius surprised the lion by boarding the Invincible Reason and bringing the captive Conrad Kurz along. Sanguinius hoped to harness Kurz's prophetic abilities to discern his own purpose on Davin. As Sanguinius commanded a mass landing on the planet's surface, the enraged lion almost ordered Davin's annihilation, disregarding Sanguinius' presence. However, at the last moment, the lion relented, aghast at the magnitude of what he had nearly done. He realized that an insidious force was attempting to ensnare the Primarchs on the path of damnation, prompting him to follow Sanguinius down to Davin, driven by the sense of duty and the need to unravel the mysteries that lay ahead. Upon reaching Davin, a treacherous turn of events unfolded. Sanguinius found himself ensnared within a malevolent portal, engaged in a fierce duel against the demon Madail. Desperate to reach their embattled brother, Guilliman and the lion fought valiantly both on the planet's surface and in the skies above. The clash reached a fever pitch as the demon ship Veritas Ferrum obliterated Guilliman's acting flagship, the Samothrace, in a devastating assault from orbit. Despite the odds stacked against them, Guilliman and the lion, fighting side by side as true brothers, unleashed their combined might upon the colossal soul grinder, bringing it crashing down. Eventually, Sanguinius managed to break free from the clutches of the portal, and the Space Marine forces hastily retreated to the safety of space. In a strategic maneuver, Davin was obliterated by cyclonic torpedoes, eradicating the planet and dispersing the demonic fleet that had plagued them. In the void left by Davin's destruction, a rapture in the Runestorm emerged, revealing a potential path to Terra.
However, further analysis revealed that Horus had foreseen this route and had erected a formidable blockade to impede their progress. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Guilliman and the Lion agreed to engage the blockade, serving as a diversion while Sanguinius and the Blood Angels pressed towards Terra, embracing their fated destiny. The Lion expressed his fervent desire to exact vengeance by assaulting worlds under Horus's control along the way to Terra, relishing the opportunity to strike back. At some point prior or during the Siege of Terra, the Astronomicon, the guiding light of the Imperium, mysteriously faltered for the Dark Angel's fleet. Gripped by fear that Horus had conquered Terra, the Lion descended into a nihilistic state of mind, forsaking the direct path to Terra. Instead, he resolved to unleash devastation upon the traitor-held territories, rationalizing that these assaults would draw enemy reinforcements away from Terra and serve as a vengeful purge. In the spite campaign known as the Passage of the Angels, the Lion oversaw the destruction of Chemos and Barbarus, guided solely by Chicholcha in the absence of the Astronomicon's guidance. The Lion's next destination was Deliverance, the homeworld of the Raven Guards, where Corax and Leman Russ were mustering their forces. Inquisitive about the Raven Lord's absence from the major war fronts, the Lion's concerns were allayed by Russ, who pointed to the survival of his own legion as evidence of their value. Rush pledged to join the Lion's crusade of vengeance, offering warriors equipped with the newly forged Mark VI power armor. However, Corax exercised caution, wary of committing his battle-worn Raven Guard to what he perceived as potentially wasteful pursuit driven by spite. Consequently, he assigned only a modest expeditionary force of his Raven Guards to accompany the Lion's forces. Ultimately, the Lion set his course for Terra, but fate dealt a cruel hand, arriving too late to influence the outcome of the decisive battle or preventing the Emperor from being interned on the Golden Throne. The Lion arrived marked a bittersweet moment of missed opportunity and a sense of solemn duty unfulfilled. Lion L. Johnson, consumed by grief due to his Dark Angel's inability to reach Terra in time to prevent the Emperor's fall during the Siege of Terra at the culmination of the Horus Heresy, made his return to Caliban shortly after the conclusion of the siege. This marked his first visit in many standard years, a journey undertaken to bolster his Dark Angel's forces to recover from the profound shock of the heresy. Caliban had remained isolated from the Legion's main force due to the Runestorm's effect and other turbulent warp disturbances that had plagued the Immaterium during the dark days of the Horus Heresy. Upon the Dark Angel's void ship's arrival in Caliban's orbit, a brutal barrage of defense fire erupted from the planet's surface, targeting the fleet. In response, the fleet withdrew and L. Johnson endeavored to ascertain the cause of this aggression. A chance encounter with the passing merchant ship yielded the revelation that Luther had manipulated the minds of the Space Marine garrisons stationed on the world, wresting control for himself. This revelation struck L. Johnson as the resurgence of chaos. Its corruptive influence now stained the souls of his oldest friend and former mentor, Luther. The Lion's restrained fury was unshackled, and the world bore the brunt of his wrath. He issued orders for a meticulous executed orbital bombardment, a campaign intended to cleanse the planet of chaos blight once and for all. The world ignited in flames, its defense systems eroded to insignificance. L. Johnson took personal command of his forces, leading an assault against the defenders entrenched within the Order's fortress monastery. Amidst the raging conflict, the Lion confronted Luther, only to witness a disturbing metamorphosis. Luther had become the embodiment of chaos, his former self all but consumed. Luther, now elevated to the status of Chaos Champion, wielded strength rivaling that of the Primarch, bestowed upon him through the sinister gifts of the Chaos Gods. Their clash ignited a battle of unparalleled magnitude. Their duel rent apart the very monastery that had stood as a bastion, yet the planet itself bore the weight of their confrontation. The unrelenting orbital bombardment began to fracture the planet's crust, as the Dark Angels in orbit remained unaware of the devastation they were inadvertently inflicting upon their own ancestral world. The conflict between Luther and the Lion raged on a colossal scale, culminating in a psychic attack that seemingly dealt a mortal blow to L. Johnson. In that moment, Luther realization dawned. A veil of deception lifted from his eyes, exposing the depths of his jealousy and rage. He crumbled to the ground, his desire to fight evaporating. Though for the Lion, it was too late. The malevolent, ruinous powers of chaos, incensed by their diminishing grip on yet another pawn, unleashed a momentous warp storm that ravaged the planet's surface. Under the relentless onslaught, the world buckled and fractured, its very fabric disintegrating. All that remained intact was the Order's monastery, ensconced within potent defensive force shields, its protection providing the sole salvation from utter annihilation. The remaining Dark Angels who had succumbed to Luther's corrupting influence, embraced chaos, were drawn into the warp's maw, their essences scattered across the vast expanse of the galaxy. From that moment onward, they became known as the Fallen Angels, or simply the Fallen. This scattering of the Fallen Angels spanned both time and space, a result of their tumultuous fate. Concurrently, Caliban itself crumbled under the relentless onslaught of the ruinous powers' assault. Upon their descent to the remnants of Caliban, reduced to a mere asteroid bearing the Order's fortress monastery, the Dark Angels conducted a thorough search of the ruins. There, they encountered Luther, lost in his mutterings, proclaiming that JONSON had been taken by the Agmatic Watchers of the Dark, destined to return one day to expand forgiveness to Luther's transgressions. Despite their efforts, the Dark Angels found no trace of their Primarch amidst the wreckage. Though Luther emerged from the confrontation alive, his psyche had been shattered, leaving him in a state of profound instability. Subsequently, the Dark Angels took him into custody as their prisoner. Confined within a stasis cell nestled within the depths of the rock, the remnants of the once mighty fortress monastery of the Order and the sole vestige of their shattered world Caliban, Luther grappled with the weight of his transgressions against the chapter's Primarch. His existence remained a closely guarded secret, shared solely with successive Supreme Grand Masters of Dark Angels. Access to his cell was an exclusive privilege reserved for those who bore the Sword of Secrets, the revered chapter artifact that signified the office of the Supreme Grand Masters. As for the fate of Lionel Johnson, he was briefly spirited away in the turbulent embrace of the warp during the cataclysm that consumed Caliban, eventually re-emerging from a tumultuous interlude. The Agmatic Watchers of the Dark guided him in an arcane, inaccessible chamber deep within the rock. There, shielded from prying eyes, he was gently placed into a dreamless slumber, preserving his life. This closely held secret transcended mortal knowledge, known only to the Emperor of Mankind himself, who despite his entrapment on the Golden Throne, retained an all-seeing awareness. Not even the Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels held knowledge of this ultimate and paramount enigma concealed within their chapter. However, among the ranks of the Dark Angels, a hushed undercurrent persisted, a belief that someday the Lion would re-emerge, spearheading a final crusade. This endeavor was destined to secure the pinnacle of triumph for both the Dark Angels and humanity, ultimately ushering in the redemption and retribution for the lingering fallen angels. Unbeknownst to them, this whispered legend held more veracity than they dared imagine. Their lost Primarch lay in serene slumber, nestled within the very heart of their fortress monastery, a profound truth concealed in plain sight.
Hey all you Great Crusaders, Warhammer Wiki here. Thank you so much for tuning into the full history of Lionel Johnson. I hope by the end of this video, you'll be able to read some of the new books about Lionel Johnson now waking up from his slumber and understand everything that is going on. We are getting super close to 1,000 subscribers here on the channel, so if you can, please hit that subscriber button if you're enjoying the content, and then like this video, comment down below, and hit that notification bell, as I will be coming out with a couple new videos about some new Primarchs. That way you can get the full history on them also. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. This video has been a long time coming. I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to talking to you guys a little bit later. Bye.